Great. Welcome. Good evening. On behalf of the Lindbergh Schools parent groups, welcome to the 2025 Board of Education Candidate Forum. Thank you for being here. My name is Robin Elder. I'm the Lindbergh High School Parent Teacher Group Grant Coordinator, and I will be moderator for the forum. We'd like to thank our student volunteers, and they are going to help by leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to our student volunteers, Maybell, Ava, and Olivia. We also have some volunteers to help keep time, including our students. Also Tim Brooks down here from our Lindbergh High School parent group. So right down here with our wonderful candidates here, that's where you can find to see your time for the evening. And we appreciate your participation. Thank you to all the parent groups for putting this together. Thank you to the committee who worked on organizing the questions. Thanks to the candidates for being here. And finally, thank you to you, the community, for attending. Each candidate will be given a 1-minute opening statement as well as a 1-minute closing statement following the questions. The community submitted more than 150 questions for the candidates. A neutral committee was formed to go through the questions and sort them, and in some cases, combine similar questions into one. I will be asking the questions in the order of most frequently asked to less frequently asked. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer. With each question, we will alternate who answers first. During the answers, our timers will hold up a sign at the 1-minute mark, when there are 30 seconds remaining, and finally when time is up. At that point, the candidates can finish their sentence before we move on. We will ask as many questions as we can in the time we have allowed, which is when we will conclude approximately 7:30 this evening. Please hold all applause until the end. So thank you for coming this evening, and let's get started. We will start with Mrs. Voss's opening statement.
Okay, my name is Julia Voss. I am running for the Board of Education because I just deeply care about this district. I have very strong ties to the district. My husband's whole family went here, and then I have 3 children who go to school here. I have 1 at the high school and 2 at Truman right now. We moved from the city specifically so the kids could come here. I'm running for re-election to ensure that all students continue to have opportunities to thrive in this district. Over the past 3 years that I've been on the board, I have helped shape many opportunities. Now, I'm just one person on committees, on the board, everywhere, so I would never claim to take responsibility for all of these things. But by service through the board, I have had a hand in bringing Lindbergh impact here through my service on the Embedded Credits Task Force. I am going to help shape the vision for the Farmers Club by serving on the Farmers Club Visioning Committee. And I am serving on the Secondary Standards-Based Grading Committee, which will help shape how, when, and why, and how we might use standards-based grading in the secondary levels. That's in addition to all the other committees that we serve on every day. So I'm happy to contribute my voice to that. I hope that people have found value in it, and I hope that you continue to allow me to serve. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Miller.
Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight and to our parent groups for hosting. I'm Jennifer Miller. Is it not working? Hello?
I think you should have to be closer.
Okay. Can we start my time over? I'm Jennifer Miller, and I'm currently on the Board of Education and running for re-election. My husband and I bought our first home in Lindbergh 20 years ago because we wanted our future children to attend Lindbergh schools. We have 2 children, an 8th grader at Sparing and a 10th grader at Lindbergh High School. Professionally, I work as an early intervention therapist with the Missouri First Steps program, which provides therapy to young children with developmental delays and disabilities. I'm running for re-election because I want to continue to carry on Lindbergh's long-standing tradition of academic excellence, continue to work on the priorities our community has identified for our district, and ensure we continue to have good relationships with our staff. I will also look at rigorous instruction, safe and secure buildings, workforce development programs, fiscal responsibility, and oversight. I also volunteer with many other Lindbergh organizations such as PTOs, task force, and advisory committees. It is important for me to give back to the community I live in and the one that takes such good care of my own children. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Greenberg.
Good evening. Here, ma'am. Tonight, you will hear from two distinct groups of candidates. One group will defend the status quo at Lindbergh Schools. The other will advocate for reform at Lindbergh. The status quo has seen a 35% decline in MAP scores, a decline in student proficiencies from greater than 80% of our students proficient to less than 60%, and a decline in Lindbergh's statewide standing from a top 5 district to somewhere around 75th. The status quo has taken Tom Sawyer and To Kill a Mockingbird out of the libraries and replaced them with A Handmaid's Tale with its graphic descriptions of gang rape, and Monday Isn't Coming with its dark and depressing descriptions of suicide. The status quo has led to the branding of some of our students as oppressors while dooming others as perpetually oppressed. If declining academic performance, dark and depressing books, and prejudicial social programming seems acceptable and even desirable, you should support the status quo candidates. If not, I suggest you support the reform candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Randleman.
Thank you. Parents, teachers, and community, thank you for having me here today. I was promised a fair forum, and I'm eager to see it unfold. I'm David Randleman, running with 3 key goals. Goal number 1, restore excellence in education with a common sense, evidence-based curriculum and merit-based challenge classes in the middle school. Number 2, boost transparency. As a candidate, I've uncovered affirmative action in the gifted program, millions in tax dollar waste, and hidden policy. And I'll push to reverse the Muzzle Act so you can speak freely at board meetings. Third, remove partisan politics, like the decolonization of our libraries, and refocus on community unity through academic excellence, as we were once known for. For more, including my video series on these issues, please visit my site, randleman.com. Thank you.
Thank you. For our first question, it was submitted by a student. Maybell will read our question, and we will start with Mrs. Miller for the first response. Maybell?
What is your vision for Lindbergh's future, specifically regarding educational policy and community involvement? And how do you plan to support the district's improvement while also ensuring that you represent the voice of students, employees, and the community?
All right, quite a few things in that one question. Well, I feel like since I've been on the board, we have really talked about, or really tried to bring our community into our schools to see what they want for our schools. We started quite a few board advisory committees, and we are adding another one next year. We want our community to be a part of what is going on. We want them to have say in what is going on. And our recent bond issue shows that our families support what is happening in Lindbergh schools. Could you repeat? There was educate, like...
Yes. What is your vision for Lindbergh's future, specifically regarding educational policy and community involvement, and how do you plan to support the district's improvement while also ensuring that you represent the voices of students, employees, and the community?
Thank you. It's kind of hard for us to hear the microphone.
Oh, here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In regards to ensuring student involvement, we also now have a student sitting on our school board as kind of a representative member. They don't get to vote, but they have input, and he, currently I think, goes around to each of the school buildings to get input from members of, all of the elementary schools, both middle schools, as well as the high school. Dr. Lake also has a student advisory board that he meets with 4 to 6 times a school year to get input from them. We really try hard to reach out to, as I mentioned earlier, our community as well as our students. In regards to educational policy, policy is usually set by federal or state law, and our district policies come off of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Damer.
Yes, so my vision for Lindbergh is to make it what it once was, the academic powerhouse in South County and in the state of Missouri. We need to be a top 5 school once again, and in order to do that, we need to refocus away from social programming and toward academics. So if students have input into improving academics, I'm all ears, that's great, but it's a job for the board and for the administration to have academic excellence training programs for the students, and my vision is to focus on those academics for the future of the school and the community.
Thank you. Mr. Reagan.
Thank you. Well, the future of Lindbergh Schools is very much something that I think about a lot and I've raised a lot, and especially when it comes to its educational future. One of the things which we've seen, especially according to our demographic studies, is that we are heading towards a population collapse, and eventually the amount of students here is going to start declining. So how do we keep, and this is all schools in our state, so how do we keep our schools viable? How do we make Lindbergh schools remain with high enrollment numbers? And the answer is we have to be that center of academic excellence, which means we have to go back to the 3 R's, the reading, writing, and arithmetic. And that's what I'm advocating for. That's what I'd like to start planning. And as far as what it would give students, I think in this way, we're better preparing our students for a competitive world where, you know, we're facing China, we're facing a lot of other countries which are focusing on the academic excellence. If we don't get our act together, we're not going to be a competitive nation. So that's really my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Mrs. Voss.
My vision for Lindbergh's educational policy going forward is to be one that really focuses on each individual student and what they need. When you focus on test scores only, you leave out individual students. When we sit and prepare students for 2 weeks before a test, cramming this down their throats so that the kids who are only on the line that might step over it to get you to proficient, you are ignoring 75% of the kids in your class so that those 25% will move forward. It is not helping our students prepare for life, and it is not doing anything other than raising a number that DESE no longer even cares about, because they're changing the math tests. They're changing them to be more focused on individual growth and individual students. And that is the way forward. We don't want to live in the past. We can't live in the past, because the job that I have now is one that didn't exist in the past. The jobs that our students will have are not jobs that existed in the past. When I graduated law school, there was no such thing as e-discovery and litigation support. It is a job that I created that I had no training for, except how to think, how to analyze things, how to be creative, and how to work with people. Those are the skills that our students have to have, and if we can teach them those things, they will be prepared for the future. And if we focus on what each one of them needs to get there, we will be putting them out for jobs that will exist that we don't even know what they are right now.
Thank you. Mic switch. Can everyone hear the candidates okay? So, okay.
Someone want to hold it?
So we might want to get a little bit closer to the mic. Are you all hearing me a little bit better now? Okay, good. So might need to get a little bit closer to the mics and you speak clearly. Okay, thank you all. Okay, next question. Mr. Damer, we will start with you. This question. What is your reason for running for the Board of Education? How are you currently involved with the district, and what have you done to prepare for being on the board? How would you serve fairly as a representative of the district, especially if you do not have children currently enrolled in Lindbergh schools?
4 questions.
I know, I'm happy to repeat.
One at a time.
Okay, one at a time.
So
What is your reason for running
why
for
am
the
I
Board of
running?
Education?
I'm running for the school board because I became aware of the decline in the academic excellence, and I'm running to make sure we return to that. Second?
How are you currently involved with the district, and what have you done to prepare for being on the board?
Okay. Preparing for being on the board is trying to understand what's going on in the district and what needs to be fixed. I'm not doing anything with the board. They're not allowing public comments anymore, so the board votes 90% of the time, 100%. So there's really very little interaction that you can have with the board at meetings, so there's not much point in participating. Last question.
How would you serve fairly as a representative of the district, especially if you do not have children currently enrolled in Lindbergh schools?
Okay, so I live here. The students who graduate here may someday be my doctor. They may design a bridge I have to drive across or a building I have to stay in. So I have a vested interest in the excellence of the students that come out of here. So my interest is in myself, my family, my own children. Whether I have children in the school is irrelevant because these students are the future of my community, and I want to make sure that that's a good future.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderland.
Yeah, so I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of my time to just respond about the whole thing with the math testing. I feel it's important to emphasize this. I don't care if it's math or ACT or whatever metric we look at to show that our students are ready and proficient and getting their academic requirement. But I also want to bring an example here, an analogy, if you will. When we teach our daughter how to drive, we're not teaching her how to pass the test. We're teaching her life skills and practical way of driving, understanding the law and everything else. I'm sure you passed the bar as well, Julia, but at the end of the day, you do have to go to a test. And when you go to a test, preparing the students with life skills will also pass the masteries that the DESE is expecting us to do, or ACT, whatever you choose. But we have to have a metric where we can compare with other school districts. And with the time I've left, which is 1 minute, I'm sorry, can you remind me again what the first question?
Yes. What is your reason for running for the school board?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I'll answer that briefly. Really, my family has been part of Lindbergh Schools for many years. We have a love for the school. I have the advantage of seeing the school with my children for well over a decade, and I've seen the difference between how it was in 2012 and how it is now. And it's a leadership thing. I want to bring it back to where it was. That was a good, inclusive experience for me as an immigrant.
Currently involved with the board, with the district, and what you've done to prepare for being on the board.
Yes. Well, for 4 years, I've been trying to work with the district. I've met with many of the administrators and teachers and community. I've canvassed almost every house in this district. I've spoken to many of you. I understand, I hear you, I hear the taxpayers, I hear the teachers, I hear the students, and I think I can do a good job representing you. Thank you.
Ms. Voss, thank you. Ms. Voss.
I am running to just contribute in a way that I think I can to the community. I want to make sure that every student has an opportunity to learn in a way that is meaningful for them, because not every student learns the same way. And so I've been very excited to see the district adding programs that are tailored to different types of students and preparing or providing experiences that are different for different types of students. And so I want to make sure that that continues. I think if we try to conform everybody to learn in one way, that we are not preparing them for real life. And so how am I currently involved in the district? Well, I'm on the board, which means I'm also serving on 3 different board committees, and then all the task forces. There's usually 3, I think I'm on 3 task forces as well. And then you go to these random ad hoc meetings all the time that are, let's talk about school finance, that sort of thing. So I'm very involved in the school at this time. And my kids also tell me what's going on in the schools. So they come home and bring some fun news of what's going on to me. What have I done to prepare for the board? So I didn't have to prepare for running for the board. Since I'm on it, I know exactly what I'm getting into, and I'm prepared to continue to serve on all those committees. But the first time I ran, I spent hours and hours meeting with people and trying to understand it and working with data to try to understand what was going on in the district. Because even when you do that, it's not enough. There's so much going on. The first year on the board is really learning what's going on in the district. And you can't really prepare for how much you need to know to serve on this board.
Thank you. Samantha?
Right, so I'm running again. I want to continue our board's work that we have heard from our community for years. Is it still not? Like, I feel like, is it working now? Are we good? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so I want to continue the work with the, no, I'm getting,
Just have to,
Just
yeah.
don't ever move that.
like, right here?
Yes.
Then I can't see my notes. Okay, so I want to continue the board's work that we have reached out to our community over years to get to. I want Lindbergh to provide programming, services, and academics to meet the needs of every student that comes through our doors. We need to implement Lindbergh's new strategic plan and ensure that our students are prepared for the future. We need to continue to be a top workplace where staff want to come to work and want to stay at Lindbergh for their entire career. I believe in serving our community, and I do that in multiple ways. I have been on the board. I currently also serve on the Lindbergh High School PTO as well as the Sparing PTO. I'm on 2 board advisories and a task force, and over the years I have served on at least 1 or 2 task force every single year, as well as just those ad hoc meetings. I also volunteer at my children's schools. I work the school store in Sparing. I'll be there next Monday, everyone. Come buy some little squishy toys. I also volunteer in their Lindbergh activities as well. In regards to preparing for running for the board or just being on the board, I am constantly reading not only information about Lindbergh, but statewide and federal information that pertains to public education and how that may impact Lindbergh going forward. I also want to point out that the school board meetings do allow for public comment in 2 different agenda items. One is for agenda items for that particular meeting that are already on the agenda, and there is another agenda item that allows for public speakers to come and speak to the board about non-agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Engelman, we will start with you with this next question. How would you ensure that academic success is measured appropriately at both the elementary and high school levels? And how would you support diverse experiences for all students to ensure they are well prepared for life beyond Lindbergh?
Sure, well, we can start with how to measure academic performance. We have great tools at Lindbergh Schools. We have the NWEA, for example, and iReady, and I particularly like the NWEA because it has case studies which kind of show you on a state level proficiency where we're at. It's also a tool that a lot of other districts use, and it allows to compare. By the way, I heard that the NWEA is getting pulled. So not math, not NWEA. I don't know what we're going to have left. Maybe we'll just grade ourselves. So I do think we need some kind of a tool of accountability. And what was the second part of it?
How would you ensure that academic success is measured appropriately at both the elementary and high school levels, and how would you support diverse experiences for all students to ensure they're well prepared for life beyond?
Thank you. Yeah, so look, we're a diverse experience. I want to go back to when we were immigrants here in 2012 with Hebrew, and my kids didn't know any English, and we're a diverse family with a diverse experience for sure. No one can represent who we are in the school district, but this school district, and I say it to its credit, accepted us with open arms and helped us get prepared so we could join the school and feel part of the school. And I would like to continue that quality of service for all students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Watson.
Okay, so measuring academic success. So there are a lot of ways to measure academic success. And the NWA is what we're using right now, but it is transitioning over to iReady. We currently use iReady in math, but we are going to use it across all the ELA and everything too. It's a very similar test to NWEA, where it will measure growth and performance at the same time while being national norm. So you know where you stand. It's just a different company that does it. So we'll still have all of those metrics that NWEA has and be able to slice them and dice them however we want. And one of the best things about those kinds of tests is that they do allow the teachers to work with data. And they divide it, they can help divide the students up into groups. So you have one kid who might need help with fractions, and the other one who's great at fractions but needs help with angles or something. And so those tests are able to give immediate feedback, say, okay, you've got 3 kids in this group, 2 kids in this group, right? And then the teachers can break off into small groups and help each student with just what they need so that every student is continuing to move forward. And so that's why those tests are so much better than the once-a-year test that is just measuring success one time on that test. Now, that doesn't mean that the MAP test is completely meaningless, or it's not, but it's just one way to look at things. And what is important to know, too, is that these tests, they're divided a little differently, whereas the MAP test has that basic group. Their basic doesn't mean failing. There's kids who are at grade level, and they still fall into basic. There's some line that Desi knows that in the basic switches from grade level to below grade level. And that's why that test is so hard to read and interpret, because it's not breaking them up enough. Like the NWEA breaks them up into 20% instead of just 4. And so you get a much better read on where your students are.
Thank you.
So measuring academic success at various levels of public school age, I believe it's important to look at multiple data points when we're talking about formative as well as summative assessments, right? All kids have different strengths and different weaknesses, and we need to make sure that we are giving them every opportunity to show us their learning and show us what they have mastered. Some students are great at tests, some are great at a project, some are great at writing, some are great at giving a presentation. And I think we need to be able to take all of those things and say, okay, does this child know what they are supposed to know? Did we say this is the proficiency scale, and yes, they're great at this thing, they need to work a little harder on this? There are multiple ways to track how a student is doing. I think, I'm a little confused. I don't think NWA is being pulled. The state has said not to use FastBridge for reading assessments, and that is getting switched to iReady next year. My understanding is we're still using NWEA, and we're working with the state in developing their next way to do state testing instead of the MAP test. I don't know if NWEA will be chosen for that. I'm not on the state board, and I'm not part of DESE. Regarding real-world experiences, I think this is another great way to look at what our students are learning. Are they able to take what they have learned, what we have said they should be proficient in, and apply it in real-world ways? And we are giving our students these opportunities all the time, and we are constantly adding more. The high school level, I've talked about, we've added the CNA program, we've added an EMT training program. We also offer quite a few different classes that at the end of that class, those students can take a certificate test, for example, in our computer science courses and things like that. At the elementary level, I know that our science program in recent years has switched over to more real-world hands-on experiences, so they can take kind of that reading, that book learning, that lecture learning, and actually apply it. And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dean.
Yeah, academic excellence, academic evaluation takes place at a number of different levels. The first of which is in the classroom. The teachers in the classroom have to be perceptive enough to understand the needs and the progress of the children in their schools, children in their classes. So it is the teachers are the very first line of defense in defense of the children and their growth. So the teachers need to be recognizing when a student is falling behind, and they need to then either apply different methods or get the parents involved or whatnot. So our teachers need to be the first spot. Overall, for district monitoring, the NWEA and the MAP tests are objective tests which take the whole of the teaching experience and saying, have you gotten to where you're supposed to be? I'm very skeptical of some of the newer methods which involve progress because they simply measure advancement, but they don't tell you where you started or where you finished. If If you start at 20% proficient and you move to 25, wow, that's 5% advance, but that's still failing. So any thing based on that kind of system is not adequate. So we start with the teachers, and then at the end of the year, we evaluate progress on an overall basis.
Thank you. Mrs. Voss, I will start with you for our next question. What is your position on the role of parents and the community in restricting or banning materials from our libraries, including books and historical content? How do you balance this with professional standards for what teachers should be teaching to meet state learning standards?
So we have in this district a policy on if there's a book in the library that a parent doesn't want their kid to read, the parent has every right to say, don't let my child check that book out. Or if there is a challenge to one book that is in there and they want it pulled completely because they think it's inappropriate, there's a whole policy for procedure for how to do that. It goes through committees, and then a committee decides whether that book should stay in the library or not. It is a group decision at that point that comes to the board, and then the board votes on what to do after hearing the recommendation of that committee. So we have policies in place to allow parents and the community to give their opinions on what should be in our libraries. But there had been an effort a few years ago, I think we've gotten past it, I hope, where it was just, here's a pile of 10 books, we want to ban them all because we don't think that they're right. And that to me was not about, is this one book okay? It was a political movement that was trying to distract from learning, and I am not okay with that. Our kids are not a political talking point. They are here to learn, and the books that we have in the library have been vetted by professionals and are content that teaches them something about either an educational subject matter or there might be life experiences in there. A lot of the books that people wanted to ban were about people's unique life experiences. And if we want to raise our children to be compassionate, empathetic, and be able to work in a community or work in a job where not everybody is like them, having books that give other people's perspectives and opinions is important. Because if you surround yourself with people who only look like you, talk like you, act like you, you will not be able to work with people who are not like you. And if we have those books available, they can have that experience.
Thank you.
Hello. Okay, I go again. I feel like I'm still learning this microphone. All right, so I believe that parents have every right to know what is going on in their children's schools, what books are available, and they have the right to limit that access if they want to. I do not think that a parent should be able to limit other children's access to that material. I believe our teachers and our library staff are professionals. They went to school to do what they do, and they're good at what they do. We have highly qualified people working in Lindbergh schools, and they know the curriculum. They know what supports the curriculum, and they make it accessible for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
So to understand this issue broadly, there are over 10 million titles in print in the English language. Over 10 million. There's maybe 10 or 20,000 in the Lindbergh district. That means the Lindbergh district itself has already banned over 9 million books. And the school district did that without any input from any parent or anyone in the community. So the idea that parents are the book banners is totally wrong and totally pejorative. Parents became aware of books that could only be described as pornography. They had no business in the library, whether their child was checked out or not. So parents rose up and said, we do not want this in our library, it's inappropriate, it does not belong. They have every right to raise those objections. The district has banned Anne of Green Gables, Little House on the Prairie, and every Mark Twain book. And why were they banned when pornographic books were inserted? So understand who's doing the banning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what we heard earlier is exactly why there's so much division in our community. I find it very sad that it's saying, hey, this was a political movement and banning. So I'm hoping to get this really sorted out. First of all, the fact that a child can't check a certain book out from the library doesn't prevent them from reading it in the library or in the classroom where often those books exist. And so blaming the parents for being concerned over these books, that is something that is not true, that that books can be limited. The second thing I want to point out is the political thing. This was a grassroots movement. It was not a political movement. Okay? And there are different families with different values here. And a lot of these books, they didn't support the curriculum at all. We heard a lot about, I need people to look at me. Why are we so, why is race so important? How about looking at the contents of character? How about looking at stories which are truly building and inspirational of all sorts, from all over the world? But here it's about normalizing lifestyles. So maybe a family that comes from a conservative home is being fed books which are teaching them different values, contrary to how they grew up. History also, you mentioned that. I have many concerns about history. We're not teaching history fully. There are children who don't understand, for example, the Jewish history and what we've gone through. And my children have seen anti-Semitic things happen to them out of ignorance. Not that the students were anti-Semitic, they just didn't know. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Miller, we'll start with you with this next question. What is your understanding of IDEA and Section 504? And how will you ensure the district upholds these laws and meets the needs of students, especially if federal protections or funding are reduced or eliminated?
Okay, so IDEA is Federal Law, the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. Pretty familiar with this. I have children who have IEPs. I work in this world. As a board member, if for some reason federal funding was pulled and the state didn't funnel that funding to SSD or to Lindbergh, I believe, I believe that yes, Lindbergh will have to meet the needs of these students, whether it is through an IEP or a 504. We will have to do whatever we can to make our budget work to ensure that we can provide these services, because this is the only way these students can make it through their day, make it to graduation. They have to have these services. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Rob, repeat the question for me.
Yes. What is your understanding of IDEA and Section 504? And how will you ensure the district upholds these laws and meets the needs of students, especially if federal protections or funding are reduced or eliminated?
Okay, so my understanding is that we have an obligation, both morally and ethically, to educate those children that come to the district. That's my understanding, whether they have handicap or disability or what. And it's our obligation to do so. Right now, the federal situation is in flux. However, the Department of Education spends only 25% of its budget on direct payments to institutions. So if the bureaucracy shrinks, that leaves more money to come to the schools themselves. But nonetheless, and I agree with Jennifer that those kids that come here, we have an obligation to take care of them and educate them, and whatever it takes to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Lindbergh.
Thank you. Really, I have the same opinion. I generally try not to get involved in external politics and speculation, but much like others have said, I would like to see students with special needs taken care of and given a program.
Thank you. Mr. Boss.
I think with the IDA and the 504 federal funding, the Lindbergh itself only gets a little bit of money from the federal government, but the problem would be is if special school district is losing its money, because the IEPs and the 504s, those are special school district. And so that's where we're concerned with it, because special school district, I took a quick look at their financials. I think it's about 20% of their funding comes from the federal government. So there will be losses, and our students will lose services from that if there is a decrease in federal funding somehow through the split of these services to different agencies that the government is also cutting staffing on. So here, I have more work to do with less people to do it. I'm a little concerned about how that's going to play out. But Lindbergh will take care of its students because it always does. We have what we call Tier 2 supports in place right now that help kids who don't quite qualify for Tier 3. So we have some teachers who are Lindbergh teachers who are already prepared to handle some of these problems, and I think we could ramp that up somehow and make sure that our students are getting great education through the reading specialists and interventionists. And beyond that, there would have to be some other cut, I'm sure. That something would have to give that we have currently. Maybe a program would have to get cut. Something would have to get cut because there's not enough money for us to completely replace the special school district the way it is right now. And so that would be a very difficult conversation with our community, within the board, but we would find a way to make it happen because these kids deserve an education just like everybody else.
Thank you. Mr. Damer, I'll start with you with this next question. Do you believe that all students, including those from the LGBTQ+ community, should be safe at school and have the same rights as other students and staff? Describe how you will support our district in meeting the educational needs of students who are in vulnerable situations, such as students who do not have access to support at home.
Okay, so for the first part, I firmly believe we...
Oh,
Mike,
hold on 1 second, sorry.
is my mic dead?
The battery still lasts low, there you go.
Okay, so... Yeah. So, all of our students need to be safe at school. And I'm somewhat concerned when we ask about a specific population that they should be safe, but we leave out other populations. No one ever asks, what are we going to do to make the Christian students feel safe at school? No one ever asks, what are we going to do to make the Jewish students feel safe at school? No one ever asks, what about the tall, skinny kid with glasses and buck teeth? What are we going to, because he gets picked on all the time. Who cares about him? All of our students should feel safe at school. And I don't like it when we want to divide up and section off or have hierarchies of needs or whatnot. We should be teaching all our students. We should treat our students, as individuals in need of instruction in math and science and reading and writing. And that's the way we should treat our students. And we should treat them all just like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this thing really is energized. Yeah, so first of all, I agree with Russ. As a person who's very much for parental rights, I always felt the way a family chooses to raise their children is their own. And I think the school has to respect that. So if a family brings their child and says, well, this child is dealing with gender dysphoria, treat them please this way, okay, I think we can accommodate that. That's a part of compassion that we should have. But here is where the line ends with me, and that is I wouldn't agree for biological boys to be in girl bathrooms. I think we need to protect the space of girls, for example. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. The second thing, as far as safety, is I want to call out the fact that there is a lot of bullying that's been going on. And I've seen and I've heard about teachers who themselves feel unsafe. How are we protecting our teachers? I would like to see more discipline in the school district to deal with students who are violent or bullying and, and do it with compassion, do it in a constructive way. But I think we have to give more support to our teachers as well.
Thank you. Mrs. Voss.
So, of course, all students should feel safe in school. I think everybody can agree with that statement. But I think where the disagreement is in how if you notice that there is a group, that's not dividing them. That's allowing students to see there are others like them. That's allowing them not to feel alone. Because the biggest concern I have about our students who are underrepresented in this school is that they might feel alone. And when you feel alone, you're not going to perform at your best for school, and you're not going to be as a productive member of society, and we just don't want that to happen. We want our students to come here and feel like they have a place to belong, no matter what they are going through, no matter what the difference is, because we all have differences. And ignoring them it doesn't help them feel seen. And you can't treat all students exactly the same and just call them students, because they aren't all the same. They all have different needs. And if you aren't addressing the initial, you feel safe here, you have a place to belong, that student will just never learn, because when thoughts come into your brain, I read one book on neuroscience, and now I'm an expert, right? But when thoughts come into your brain, they have to first go through your amygdala, and that amygdala is where the fight or flight is. And they can only get to the front where you're going to be reasoning and thinking and analyzing once that fear, that fight or flight, has gone down. And if we have students who are walking through the halls, not feeling like they belong, wondering if somebody's going to call them a name, wondering what's going to happen next to them, they will never be able to get past that fight or flight. They will always be in it, and they will not learn. And so we have to make them feel safe. We have to say, there is a place for you here, and there can be a group for that student, so that they have a group of peers to make them feel like they have somewhere to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so here at Lindbergh, we want an inclusive community where everyone feels like they belong, that they're respected, and that they're treated with dignity. In order for that to happen, and for our students to learn, their basic needs have to be met, and they have to feel safe at school. And that might look different for every single student. You know, over the years, there's been a lot of discussion about social emotional learning and how that should be left to the parents and at home and not being done at school. But there's a question on one of our social emotional screeners that I think is very important. And that question is, do you have someone at school, at least one person, that you feel like you can go to, that you trust, an adult? And when a student answers no to that, that's an issue. That means they feel like they don't have someone at school, that they don't feel understood, that their needs are not being met. And we have to ensure that students are receiving the services they need in order to thrive, because they're not going to be able to do well in school. They're not going to be able to learn, just like Julia talked about fight or flight, if they aren't comfortable in feeling like they have a place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McMillan, this next question will be for you to start us off. What is your understanding of how the district funds are allocated from federal, state, and local sources? How will you ensure these funds are used responsibly, particularly for at-risk students and Title I programs? Additionally, how will you balance funding for teacher salaries with other essential needs like school programs and facilities?
Yeah, thank you. A lot of questions there. I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but I always wish that there were more questions about what we're actually getting on board for education. But it's so much about social and cultural issues, and I think that's intentional. But to answer, I want to go back for just 1 second about the inclusiveness and the prior question. I think that a child having certain values from their home, it doesn't mean that they have to have others like them. Where are you going to find in school an Israeli, half Japanese, half American, half Jewish, which also happen maybe to believe in Jesus, and there's no one representing them? What are you going to do? That is not a scalable solution. Instead, we have to find unity and love and accept who they are. Again, this goes back to contents of their character. As far as funding, I think the percentages are roughly 5% from the federal government, maybe a little bit more, 10% from state. I know that the vast majority of our funding comes from local, and I think we need to be very careful about how we use our funds. I'm seeing a lot of waste. I'm seeing a lot of waste and construction that we're doing before we have permits. I think that's negligence. And I also think that when I look at the administration, and it's top-heavy, and the average salary there is like $180,000 while our teachers are struggling, I'd like to get the teachers more. I'd like to see that our teachers, especially the ones with merit, which are doing a great job, receive more, and I don't think we should retire them early. I'd rather pay them more and have their expertise and experience.
Thank you. Mrs. Voss?
So our district receives about 80% of its funds locally. The rest are split between federal and state. And so there is a concern right now, I guess, about local funding and state funding because of all the legislation that's out there right now in many different ways. One, cutting local taxes, one, cutting property taxes, cutting taxes for seniors, which is a really good idea, but in theory that is going to affect the schools. And so we have to find a way to do those things if they're good ideas in a way that doesn't hurt the schools and allows the schools to still keep their revenue. Because what happens if you don't have the revenue, then we have to either cut programs or raise taxes. And so the taxes you saved over here are just going to be raised over here. And we don't want to raise taxes. So then we have to have hard discussions with the community and say, all right, what do you want to cut? Because all these local funds and all the taxes that the legislators want to take away, that means we don't have money for programming for students. And so that's a balancing act of trying to make sure that the individual citizens are not being overtaxed with balancing the legitimate needs of the community. I'm not aware of waste in construction. There was a meeting that we had 2 years ago, or maybe it was a year and a half ago, where the JOL presented to the board and walked through everything we did with the prop last time, and there was not a $12 million waste in construction. There was a decision by the board that while we had the high school under construction, maybe we should do a little more. So they went out and got more money and did some of the projects that were not in the original prop, but went ahead and did it, because if we hadn't, the high school would have been under construction for 15 years. And so they thought, while it's torn up, let's do some of these things now. And so there was a cop loan taken out, but that was to fund additional things to be done, so that it would all get done at once. As for being top-heavy in administration, my time's up. Can't get to that, sorry.
All right, so yes, we are 86% locally funded. And yes, if we lose money because of personal property and whatnot, we might have to tighten our strings a little. Our federal money is only about $461,000 a year. Most of that money is Title I money, goes to underserved populations, and is generally used for extra reading interventionists in our schools, mostly elementary school, but we do have them in the secondary education as well. Teacher salaries and programming comes out of our operating budget. Building money to do buildings, to do renovations, and projects like that comes out of a different budget. Especially when we're talking about the bond issue. And you cannot spend money from one of those budgets on something that was in that other budget. Like, they are separate and have to stay separate. I would like to talk about merit bonuses for teachers. It would be absolutely wonderful, and I would love to do that, except the state does not allow that. Every year, we work with our teachers to talk about raises and how we can use what money we have in our operating budget, not our reserves. We do not want to go take money from reserves to pay for ongoing costs. We work with our teachers every year and have been successful in those negotiations year after year now for the past 6, 7 years. Everyone leaves pretty happy, and we usually have them vote, and it's over a 95% on what raises are going to happen. And regarding pouring, like, we did not have a mistake with our bond issue. We had our permits, we submitted our applications and our original building plans to the county, and they told us they looked good, they'd be good to go. And then they said, oh wait, we're changing the building code, so now you need an extra storm shelter. And so we had to build another storm shelter, which we made our third gym. It cost $4 million, and we did use cops to pay for that instead of going into reserves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for true confessions, when I was in school, I was the tall, skinny kid with glasses and buck teeth. And I got teased all the time, and I somehow managed, without a program, to graduate magna cum laude in Honor Society from Lindbergh High School in 1974. So it's because my teachers were teaching me. They were teaching me English, they were teaching me science, they were teaching me reading and writing. And that's how I became successful. I managed to go to Missouri University of Science and Technology. I have 2 degrees from there, and that's not a brag, because Lindbergh prepared me well, because Lindbergh was focused on preparing me well at that time. Secondly, with regard to the money, we have just built 3 gymnasiums, if I understand correctly, where we had multi-purpose rooms, where we were both cafeterias and gyms. But for some reason that wasn't good enough, so we had to build separate gyms so we wouldn't have a multi-purpose room. We couldn't be efficient, we had to spend more money. I understand that the money from the bond issues cannot go into operating funds, but the operating money can go into the bonds because we are obligated by law to pay our bonds. If the projections on income from property taxes is not what projected by the school district, we are under obligation by law to pay those bonds. That means money is going to be coming out of our operating budget. So we have spent money on Prop R and other things that we really didn't need to spend. I look at the Johnny's Market property, prime real estate that we had to buy right next door where our administration building sat for decades. We still own that property, but it wasn't good enough. We had to buy another piece of property and build elsewhere when we could have built right next door on land we already owned.
Ms. Foss, we'll start with you with our next question. We have reached the 7 o'clock hour, and this is a question. I've just rightfully reached the 7 o'clock hour. I think we have time for a few more questions as we wrap up at 7:30. So, Ms. Foss, what is your understanding of the Establishment Clause and the Separation Clause? Do you believe Christianity should be promoted in the district? And if so, how will you support those who do not share that belief? How will you keep your personal, political, and religious views out of your role as a board member?
So the Establishment Clause is the clause that requires a separation of church and state, basically. And so we cannot teach a religion in a way to influence you to be that religion, but we could teach a class about religion. And so that would be, if you had like a philosophy class or a religion class where you were studying world's religions, that's all okay to study them. It is not okay to try to get somebody to be a particular religion. And so I think that our teachers do a great job of looking at the curriculum, making sure that when they're teaching anything about religion, it is about the religion, not to try to gear you towards a religion. But there are lots of celebrations of different religions in the school and different cultures, and so that's part of the school too. I mean, there's different societies for the different religions where the kids can go and have a club or something like that. And that's all okay. We just don't put it in the curriculum to try to teach anybody to be something. How would I keep my personal beliefs and political beliefs out of this? At the end of the day, this board is not about politics. It's about what's right for students. And so the board, contrary to popular belief, is not made up of a bunch of progressive liberals. We have every party on the board right now. And it doesn't matter, and you don't know, because the decisions aren't based on politics. The decisions are based on what's right for students. And that doesn't, you know, you just don't have, we're not talking about political talking points in board meetings. Thank you.
So yes, the Establishment Clause, separation of church and state. Most of them, I think how it truly affects schools is from court case precedent, where you can teach about religions and different religions. You cannot teach in favor of a religion. And Julia kind of went over all that, so I'm not going to repeat it all. But as a board member, you know, you have to make sure your policies reflect that, and that those policies are being followed by staff, and those procedures are being followed. Keeping personal, political, and religious views separate. You know, I have always been a proponent, and I've always talked a lot about you put students first. You ask what is best for students. And as a parent, I do sometimes bring my personal feelings into my board decisions because it's what I have experienced. Like, this is what happened to me, this is what's happening to my kids, and this is how it's affecting us. Like, is that how we meant for this to happen, or is this going a different way than we thought? So yes, that helps me ask questions. It doesn't necessarily make me vote a certain way or anything like that, but it makes me dig a little deeper and have a better understanding of what is happening. Regarding political and religious views, I think a lot of people have made assumptions. I have never really talked about my political and religious views, and I don't think people could really answer that question, and I don't think I need to really speak about it because it doesn't need to be on the board. Thank you.
So the Establishment Clause is, Congress shall make no law establishing a religion nor inhibiting the free exercise thereof. So as a public body, we do not establish or push any religion. However, we should not be inhibiting the exercise thereof. And in reality, there are secular religions. And those secular religions are being pushed in many ways on our kids. And I think we need to be very careful about that. Second part.
Do you believe Christianity should be part of the district? If so, how will you support those who do not share that
It's
belief?
about the personal.
And I'm sorry, how will you keep
Everybody on the board, whether they know it or not, brings their own moral value to their decision making. So they may not overtly say this is a Christian or Jewish or whatever kind of thing, but they bring their own ideas of right and wrong, which is perfectly right and perfectly correct. It's the way this community has operated for a very long time. So I will not advocate for any religion, but I absolutely cannot separate my moral value from the decisions I'm going to try to make.
Thank you. I'll have to get to it, but real quick on the funding thing. How many here have issued a permit to build their house or make improvements? How many have started work before they actually got that permit? Well, that's what our school district did, and it's too bad that our board isn't holding someone accountable because someone did a mistake, and then they decided, well, mistake was done, let's tack more onto it. So every person should look into that and decide what they feel is right. I personally, as a board member, I would ask the question, who did that mistake? It's right for the taxpayer. As far as the separation, I agree with what Russ said. You're not supposed to endorse, or I shouldn't use the word endorse, but make an official religion. And on the other hand, there is this notion in schools, public schools, it's growing. My son happened to quote scripture, and he was told not to in public schools. Why? He's allowed, it's his freedom of speech. But the school can't tell him what religion to believe in or promote one religion over the other. I think there's a misunderstanding on that. But as far as my values, I've been very open and frank about my values. I know some people try to make it like, David's going to bring all these, force the kids to read the Bible. No. But who I am and how I was raised will influence how I conduct the board. I think there are biological boys and biological girls. I'm not going to force families to think differently. But those are my values. And I'll vote according to my conscience if I'm given that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Miller, this question is for you to start. Do you support public schools? Why or why not? If so, how will you continue that support? If not, how does that align with your potential position on the Board of Education for a public school?
Yes, I support public schools. I chose to send my own children to public schools after not attending public schools myself because I did not feel that it offered what I wanted, and I wanted more for my own children. Public schools are for everyone. We don't get to choose who walks through our doors and who we get to serve and who we don't have to serve. And in order to do that, we have to offer a wide variety of programming and support services and have those options available for every single student. I believe that my role on the board these past 9 years has shown that I support public schools and that I support our students and that I support our teachers and that I will continue to do so going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Go ahead and repeat it for me.
Yes. Do you support public schools? Why or why not? If so, how will you continue that support? If not, how does that align with your potential position on the Board of Education for a public school?
Okay, very good. Thank you. So, I think there's a hidden piece to that question, so I'll address it. I attended Lindbergh Schools from the fall of 1961 through graduation in 1974. And throughout that time, the idea of school choice, vouchers, whatever, was non-existent. It was unheard of. Today, however, school choice, charter schools is a national movement. And I ask, why? Why? It's because parents in large numbers, significantly large numbers, are becoming disillusioned with the public school. They look out at the school and they see the schools teaching things they shouldn't teach and not teaching things they should. And they're demanding alternatives. If we want to protect and defend the public school system, the public school systems must be centers of academic excellence, free of unnecessary controversies. And that's my goal. My goal is to turn this into an academic, excellent powerhouse and rid ourselves of the unnecessary controversies which are causing people literally to flee the public schools.
Thank you. Well, I don't think there's anyone here running who doesn't support the public schools. And public schools are very dear to me. I grew up in public school, and my kids were in Lindbergh Schools until 2 years ago. And I think we need to address this. It was just said here that public schools are supposed to accept everyone through the door. Well, they didn't want to accept my family. My kids were exposed to the books that in the classroom that were confusing them, and they were coming home with questions of confusion, and it was making them unstable. And I went to the teacher first, and I said, well, look, I went to the principal, and I just asked a question. Can we just move these books out of the classroom where I can't protect my kids from these values, which are different than mine? All right, these are not educational books, these are cultural and values. And place them in the library. I'll opt my child from going to the library. That's on me. And the answer I got was, no, what will the LGBTQ parents say? And my thought was, well, what about parents who don't have those same values? And here's the thing, my friends, we have to find our common denominator. We have to find what brings us together. Books about that are being pushed in the classroom, promoting one lifestyle over the other against the values of others, is not inclusive. It's othering. And so I want to see public schools go back to focusing on the education. That is our common denominator, and really that's going to be the salvation of our schools. Thank you.
I do support public schools. And you ask, why is charter schools a movement? It's not in Lindbergh. There's not a huge movement for charter schools in the Lindbergh district because we have a fantastic public school. Where is there a need for charter schools? In failing districts, there might be a legitimate need for charter schools. Or in New County, where the legislator who pushed for it had a sister who operated charter schools. All the money. Maybe there's a need for public school, for charter schools. There's not a demand for it here because we are providing what students need. I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
I agree with everything Jeff said too on that one.
Right. I think we have time for one more question. So Mr. Damer, I will start with you for this one before we move into closing statements. This is a longer question. I apologize. I'm happy to repeat. Some argue, with my paper up, some argue that schools should return to focusing solely on the 3 R's. But history shows that such an approach often left students with special needs from diverse backgrounds or facing challenges at home unsupported and marginalized. Research also links an overemphasis on test scores to rising anxiety and mental health issues among students. Given this, how would you propose improving academic outcomes without ignoring students' social and emotional needs? And how would you prevent schools from returning to a model that leaves many students behind?
Fairly argumentative question there, but nonetheless, my understanding on the last question is we've lost nearly 600 families recently because of moving to private schools, home schools, and whatnot. So there is a movement in the Lindbergh district away from public schools, which is a tragedy, frankly. For some reason, we managed to exist as a country for 200 years teaching the 3 R's. We managed to be successful, we managed to lead the world in many things. And by the way, the Lindbergh schools are not, and this will sound pejorative as well, but the Lindbergh schools are not a psychiatric hospital. Our teachers are not trained psychiatrists, they're not experienced psychiatrists, they're not licensed psychiatrists. A 3rd grade teacher helping a child who's skinned a knee, yes, that's kindness, that's compassion. But when we get into deep issues, deeply emotional problems, those are situations that the parents need to take the lead, and they need to find, if that student needs serious professional help, they need serious professional help. The schools have ventured into places they have no business. Like I said, I was a marginalized student, and somehow I managed to make magna cum laude from Lindbergh High School. Because I had a supportive family, because I had a small group of friends, and we all did very, very well together. So I don't think that whatever studies you were mentioning there somehow don't match up with the first 200 years of history of the United States. And I disagree that we need to be into that. The school needs to be into those things.
Thank you.
Well, I want to make a distinction between circumstances and underserved. Underserved are, let's say, students who come from a historically bad background. There are some programs in place that we could use. I've encouraged the school district to use it. For example, the ELL program, which absolutely could be used, helps students with gaps to close phonics, using phonics, evidence-based curriculum. We went through that program, and my kids did great. And then there's circumstances, things that are not in the control of the school. For example, maybe there are broken families, and those families aren't giving a good supportive facility for homework at home, because I'm guessing that's what the question gets at. Well, why not use community members, retired teachers, moms and dads as parents, as teachers to help and support that? You know, I've spoken in Canvas and asked that question especially when I would meet retired teachers, and they would love to do that. Why not use the community more to help students who are disadvantaged or have circumstances, rather? So I think that's important. On the other hand, if we, in order to deal with, some claim that we want the 3 R's, yeah, that's me. But it doesn't, I don't want to lower the bar for everyone just to give soft bigotry hope to those who can't. Let's support those who don't have that, and at the same time, allow the challenge of academic excellence and full potential for those students who want and can. And yeah, I think that's it.
So I think we have some pretty good examples of how Lindbergh is trying to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, and all of those important basic things to different kinds of learners. And some it's coming in the form of new programs. For example, the math program that pairs algebra with business. You're going to have a lot of kids who just don't understand algebra. They don't understand why it's useful in their daily life. They don't want to do it. They don't care. So we are offering a new program that pairs it with a business class. So you learn the same algebra that the kids are learning in the Algebra 1 class, or it's college algebra. It's the college algebra class. And so you pair that same learning, but then you pair it with business. And so it's a 2-credit class. And this is an example of teaching core academic values in a way that allows students who might be more interested in business to focus on math too. And it's not that we're using all these diverse learning things to somehow weaken the academic core, that we are strengthening it by offering different ways to learn the same skill. And the other opportunity that's new is Lindbergh Impact. It's a kind of micro school within the school that students are signing up for. I think we got about 50, signing up. I actually, don't quote me on it. I'm wrong. 36. Okay. 36, Jen says. She knows all the numbers. This is going to be a program where it's a little more student-led. And so they're going to still learn. They're going to have half of their day in their normal core classes, but then they're going to have half a day where we're combining some of the classes together, and it's going to be a little more student-led, where maybe they get to direct what the topic is for social studies or English or whatever they're doing. They're going to combine them together, and the teacher will guide them more. And I had a student come up to me, one of my daughter's friends, saying, a student who told me, she's like, I love English, but I hate social studies. I think Impact is going to be perfect for me because I can turn my English into social studies and do it all at the same time. Okay, my time.
Okay, so I want to address a few things. Lindbergh has not had declining enrollment. Over the past 10 years, we've added about 100 students every year to our enrollment, and projections show that that should continue for the next 10 years, and we do have room in our schools for that. We are not at a point where we are seeing families leave and that we need to close buildings. Like, we need all the space we have going forward. Talking about the 3 R's and academics, it's not about moving away from the 3 R's. What has happened is the state has made requirements and recommendations that in order to teach every standard the state says you need to teach would take over 25 years. Like, we have our kids for 13. It cannot happen. So you have to find priority standards, and I believe using proficiency skills to see where students are meeting those standards or not meeting those standards is important. And I want to talk about how, like, school for the past 100 years, like, yes, it was great then. And everyone, I hear people say, why, we should do it now. Well, let me tell you why. When I was in elementary school over 30 years ago, the state didn't require you to have computer science standards, but now they do. So now we have to add that to our curriculum, and our teachers have to teach that. And then something else happens, and we have to teach these new standards as well. So we can't just keep adding on and adding on. If you do that, other things are going to fall apart. Now, in the past few years, we have changed our reading curriculum to a science of reading. I have advocated that for years, since my own children were in first grade, and I believe going forward, that will definitely help us see those scores improve in the area of reading when we talk about the MAP test, but that's only if the MAP test doesn't change again. So, thanks.
Thank you. We will now move into closing statements. You have 1 minute for your closing statement. Mr. Randleman, we will start with you.
Thank you. Dear community, I hope this forum gave you valuable insights. I love our school district and believe it's worth fighting for you, for our students, for our taxpayers. My opponents say the district builds our community, but I believe it's our strong, supportive community that sustains our beloved school. I stand for reform, cutting tax rates, restoring academic excellence, and increasing transparency, while they defend the status quo. I believe my vision is preparing for the future. I bring common sense, diversity of thought, which our board lacks, but once had when we were number one. Let's return to that greatness. I am humbly asking for your vote on April 8th. Thank you.
I think that Lindbergh Schools is the glue that holds this community and a little piece of South County together. We're just a bunch of small neighborhoods, we're a bunch of small municipalities and unincorporated. And Lindbergh Schools is the thing that gives this community pride. It brings us to games, it brings us to plays, it brings us to watch the kids play in the orchestra. Like this is where the action is happening in South County, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And I hope that you will continue to trust me to continue moving us forward. And I hope that you vote for me on April 8th. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for attending tonight and to our parent groups for hosting. I'm proud to be a part of Lindbergh, a district that continues to be desirable to families, not only as a board member, but as a parent. Other districts look at us as an example of how to do things right, and DESE is revamping how they are looking at education and has come to see our work so that it can be used across the state. Lindbergh is constantly researching, evaluating, analyzing, making changes when needed, and looking ahead to plan for the education of students so they are prepared for whatever future path they choose. Lindbergh continues to be fiscally responsible, to prioritize programming and academics for all students, and attract and retain high-quality teachers and staff. I am fully invested in Lindbergh and all of its students. My children attend Lindbergh, and I of course want what's best for them, as well as all Lindbergh students. I've enjoyed my time and valued it on the board, and I hope that we use one of your 2 votes on April 8th to vote Jennifer Miller. Thank you.
In my years as a civil engineer, I worked with many intelligent and talented individuals. They were white and black, men and women, straight and gay. But they all had one thing in common. They were highly educated and thoroughly dedicated to their craft. Together, we solved many vexing problems, built outstanding facilities, and made our world work just a little bit better. As Henry Aaron once said, on the field, it doesn't matter what color you are or where you're from. All that matters is if you can play. This is how we need to treat our students. It should not matter who they are or where they're from, but we need to teach them how to get by in the world and make the world a bit better because they were in it. Thank you.
Please, let's take a moment and give a round of applause for all of our candidates.